On November 26, 1991, midway through a game between the Trois-Rivières Driveurs and the Granby Bisons, a goaltender wearing the number 17 came off the Driveurs bench and skated into history. She was the first female to ever appear in a major junior game in Canada, and less than a year later, she found herself between the pipes in a preseason game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And she is with us here right now, Manon Rheaume. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Manon, obviously you come from a hockey family. Your brother Pascal, who was your teammate with the Driver during that period in 91, of course, has his own hockey history. What attracted you to the game at first? Was it just being in the family, or was it something else?
Yeah, my two brothers was playing hockey. My dad was a coach, and no girls were playing at the rink. So, but every time I wanted to play with my brother, my dad used to do this ice rink in our backyard, and they would dress me up as a goalie, and they would shoot pucks at me. And that's how I got started. And one day my dad at the dinner table told my mom, we're going in a tournament and none of the boys show any interest to play goalie. So I don't know which one to pick. And I look at my dad, I was like, why not me? I do it with my brother all the time here. And that's how I got started.
I see. And of course, you mentioned, getting a start. Nowadays in the minor hockey ranks, obviously, having co-ed teams, females on male teams is completely normal. Back at that time, how did you go about finding ice time? What was the degree of difficulty in finding teams and leagues that you could participate in?
I started with playing with that team, and my dad was the coach. And I remember him the first day I stepped on the ice, he put a helmet on me before I enter the rink to make sure that nobody would judge me with the fact that I was a female and just judge me from my performance on the ice. And I got accepted right away because they were all happy to see a goalie. And then after that, having some success in that helped me to be on the team and stay on the team. Obviously, I tried to try out at the highest level, at the AA level. And at that point, sometimes my dad the people at the rink would say, don't bring your daughter to the camp. We're not going to pick a girl for the AA level. It's no sense to bring her here, but my dad would still bring me to try out because I wanted to try out, and I didn't know they didn't want a girl. So I would get to try out and get cut, and I would be disappointed. But after that, I would ask my dad to practice more and get better because my goal was to make the highest level. So it was difficult. I didn't know at the time that the fact that I was a female was not helping me. But working hard and getting cut a few times, eventually I ended up making the AA level when I played the Bantam level.
Right. And going back a step there too, you talk about, just working hard to get into the game. Obviously, you made headlines at the time in Pee Wee, of course, being the first female to appear in the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. And there's some notoriety that kind of came with you there. But once you started to graduate to the point where you were of junior age, do you recall what circumstances led to you getting a chance in training camp with the Driver, and then eventually, of course, getting that stint in Trois-Rivières?
Yeah, absolutely. So after playing 2 years of Bantam AA, all those goaltenders in Bantam AA got invited to the midget AAA training camp, which is a step below major junior, and except me. I didn't get invited, and obviously I knew at this point that it would be hard for me to get to the next level, so I had to take a different path. And someone talked to me about a women's league in Montreal, and I was from Quebec, so it was 2.5 hours from my house. And because it was a women's league, the game was on Saturday night, like at 10:30 at night, sometime 11 o'clock at night, because that was the only ice time available for the women. And I ended up going and play there, and I ended up making a Team Quebec, and we had a final one time on TV against Team Ontario. And in the meantime, I was always at my brother game. He was playing midget AAA. And I remember being sitting in the stand, and Gaston Drapeau was the coach of Trois-Rivières, was there, and he started talking to me about, he saw the final that I played on TV against Team Quebec, and he was really impressed, and we started talking about his team, and he's mentioning all those players that was playing for his team, and I'm like, oh, I played with him when I play Bantam, or I play against this guy when I play Bantam. And more than we were talking, you realize that I'm competing with and against all those guys on his team. And he said, would you like to come and practice with us and see, what you can do? And I remember going back to my house and told my mom, I'm not going to school on Monday. I'm driving to Trois-Rivières, and I'm going to go practice with Trois-Rivières. And after that practice, he was impressed with what I was able to do, and he invited me for camp the following year.
Right. And of course, you get to camp. You had a brief stint in junior AAA, I believe, to begin the year. And Jean-Francois Labbé, who was one of the two goaltenders, along with Jocelyn Thibault, was out of the lineup for a few games that November, which of course led to opening the path for you to get in Trois-Rivières and practice with the driver, and of course actually get an appearance in late November of that year. Do you remember just your feeling of even coming off the bench? Obviously it was a historical occasion, still talked about today, but in the moment, were you thinking anything about sort of the history you were making when you came in that game? I believe it was against Granby.
Absolutely not. I didn't realize what would happen after that game, but what happened in the game, it's the decision that Gaston Drapeau made during the game was totally like the same decision he would have made if it was a male goaltender that was sitting on the bench. I remember we were up, I think 5-1, and the score went back 5-2, 5-3, 5-4, and at 5-5, he just turned by me and said, "You're going in." And I think that was one of the coolest moments, because at that point I knew he made the decision to change, make a goaltender change, and it was not about let's put the girl in net so we can get publicity. And that was a really cool feeling to get to the game in that situation. And unfortunately, in the third period, I got a slap shot in my cage, and my cage broke and cut my eye. And I was bleeding. And I remember I didn't know I was bleeding, and the play was still going. And soon the whistle went off, and I looked down on my jersey, and I looked down on the ice, and I saw all that blood, and I had to go to the bench, and they said, you need to get stitches. You need to get out of the game. And it was really unfortunate that I couldn't finish the game. But it was just an amazing experience to have gone in.
I remember reading some time ago, Philippe Boucher, of course, was on that Granby team that you got to face that night. And he made a comment, something along the lines of a lot of the guys on the side of the Bison being kind of excited to actually be partaking in that situation when you did get put out in the net. What do you remember the reaction being amongst your teammates in Trois-Rivières and amongst the opposition when that was taking place? And that could be positive, negative, whatever you remember. What was the feeling amongst those people?
I think because of the fact that I try out with them, and after that I played junior A, and we were all going to school in the same place, because whatever the kids were playing junior A or in Trois-Rivières, we were all in that sports school and all in the same class. So I knew those players, and my brother was playing on the team. So it was really, I was accepted from that group of guys, and they play hard in front of me. So as far as the opposite team, I don't know anything about what they were thinking. But the one thing I remember, after going on the ice and the way that I got on the ice, and I got hurt by my cage being broken. I remember reading stuff the next day in the media that's saying see, she's a girl, she got hurt, and that's why girls should not play. And I was really taken back by that, because I'm thinking to myself, really, if it would have been a guy, the helmet would have never broke. It's really because it was a female in that. And it was just very unfortunate to read that. But I was not surprised, because those are some of the comments that I hear along the way when you're the first female playing in a all-male dominated sports. You need to be prepared for those. And I was just let those comments not bothering me.
And within a year or under a year, you'd already attended an NHL training camp. You'd made a preseason appearance with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just to talk us through the process that led to you meeting with, at that time, the GM was Phil Esposito and head coach was Terry Crisp. And just tell us about that entire scenario, how it played out and what got you to Tampa.
I think one of the scouts from Tampa Bay sent a video of me after playing that game to Phil Esposito. So they had some kind of a talk about like maybe the possibility of me coming to camp. But really, after my year in Trois-Rivières, I thought, okay, what's next for me? I didn't know what would be next and where would I go play. And I remember taking a job at RDS. That was like a base job, just like looking at news every day. And if something interesting, I was, forward the information to the right person there. And one of the first assignments they give me, it's the NHL draft in Montreal. And I was on the floor and I would go and see one of the player and bring him for an interview. And it's at that point that scout saw me and introduced me to Phil. And Phil asked me if I would be interested to come to camp. And at first, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if it was true, if it was real. And then he said to me, we'll send you a letter and you have 2 weeks to answer if that's something you want to do. And sure enough, I got the letter in the mail.
Obviously, at the time, a lot of people looked at what Phil Esposito and Terry Crisp and the whole crew in Tampa Bay did as kind of a promotional thing. But obviously, when it reached the media and Phil Esposito and Terry Crisp gave their reaction, they were very adamant. You're there based on your skills as a hockey player. Obviously, that was proven by them giving you the opportunity in net and you counting yourself very well. But just having that sort of confidence from them as you were embarking on this NHL training camp, how did that help you just in preparing to face the other professionals, and how did it help you from a confidence level, knowing that you were there strictly on ability and that they took any notion of this being any sort of promotional stint out of the equation?
Yeah, like when I got invited there, a lot of people said to me, oh, you don't have the same experience and all those guys that play in junior for 4 years. And my response to that, it's when I was younger, they said no to me because I was a girl. So maybe if I would have got the opportunity to go to the midget AAA training camp the same way than all the other guys who was playing Bantam AA, I may have made the team, or I may have been close to make the team. And maybe I would have gotten an invite early on to major junior instead of later on, because I had to take a different path because people said no to me. So at this point, I didn't really care why they were inviting me. I was giving an opportunity to play at the highest level. And I told myself, I'm going to be the one to have to prove myself there. And I'm not the only players that get invited to camp that people said, why this person versus another player. I look at my brother. He got invited to New Jersey. He didn't get drafted, and he ended up winning a Stanley Cup in New Jersey. So you never know how you get there. It's what you do with the opportunity when you get there. And I remember my first time on the ice in Tampa Bay, we started right away with a mini tournament. And I knew that first time on the ice would be super important for me to gain the respect of the players and all the media that was there, and for Tampa Bay for inviting me. And I did not allow any goal in that period that I played. And I was the only goalie during that game that did not allow any goal in 14 shots. And it's truly after this first time on the ice that Phil Esposito announced on the press conference, the way she played today, you may see her in exhibition games. So that exhibition game, I had to earn it. And that's some of the thing that back then people were not talking about it, that I earned the start an exhibition game.
Exactly, and I think you bring up a good point there. This was not during a time of social media. It's not like it's not like these exhibitions and practices were being covered very heavily. You couldn't go to Twitter or wherever and see how you were doing. There's a lot of misunderstanding there, but obviously the staff in Tampa had the faith in you, and it was rewarded. And you were rewarded with a pro career, parts of 4 seasons in the minors. And when you look back at that time, do you ever think of yourself in that trailblazer role, and what you accomplished and how it led to several others following in your footsteps? What when you look back on all of that aspect, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
At first I had to say, when I went to Tampa, I didn't realize the impact that I would have, that my story would have on people. I just went there. I was giving this amazing opportunity, and I was there to do my best. And it's not until later in life when people come up to me and said, you're such an inspiration for my daughter, or my son did a project on you in school, or you hear like someone like Kim St. Pierre that's going to be in the Hall of Fame, saying that she looked up to me when I went to the Olympics, or another young girls, the same thing. Like, they look at what I did and said, I want to do that. Or Charlene Labotte that ended up playing major junior after me. Those are all like story that then I realized, like, wow, my story really impacted people. And because when I grew up, I didn't see a woman play in the NHL or major junior, or even playing double A level. So I was the one that always had to break those barriers, and I didn't have anybody to look up to. So if I had a chance to do that for other girls, that's probably the most satisfying part of everything that I did.
You have a very unique perspective, Manon. Not only were you the first female player to play in the men's game, but of course you have experience as a coach, you have experience in the business side of the hockey world. And when you look at it from all of those angles, the level of respect, we'll say, that may or may not be given to the women's game. Where do you feel that level of respect is, and in any way do you think it could be improved upon?
I think it came a long way. You look at the national team now, both Team Canada and Team USA, they have like a lot better financial support for those women to train all year long, and the level of play is amazing. What the NHL did the last 2 All-Star game, with last year having a 3-on-3 women's game, and the year prior having those women come to the skill competition, I think we're making a lot of good stride. And the next one, I think it's to have like a very good league where everybody works together and not trying to compete with each other, having the NHL behind it. And I think that's the next step for the women's game, because those women goes to play college hockey for 4 years. They play on the national team, and they need a place after that. And it's great hockey. I think in the Olympics now, you look at, a lot of people said they love watching women's hockey at the Olympics. It's just a different game than the men's game. They don't have body checking, but it's very physical. So, and that rivalry between USA and Canada, I think that's something that everybody loves to watch.
And you mentioned some of the players who've, played. They've made appearances at All-Star games. You think of ones who've made such an impact in more recent times. The Hayley Wickenheisers, the Marie-Philippe Poulins, the Kendall Coyne-Schofields. And when you look at these players and the level of skill and the level of dedication there, and as well, you look at the fact that they're trying to get stability in their own league. Do you think that changes the landscape on the potential of seeing more female players actually in the men's pro game?
I think that the reason maybe we don't see as many women in the men's program, it's because we got more opportunity for women right now. And I think that they really, like, I look at this year's Secrets, the sponsorship to give $1 million to the league. It's absolutely amazing. That's something that it's well needed for those women. So it's getting there. And I think those women, they're so, everything they're doing with the sport. I remember coaching Kendall Coyne when she was 12, and her work ethic and how great she was at that age, and how much she was working hard, and she was passionate about the game. I knew she would make it far, and she would do great with her life. And I think she's a big spokesperson right now in the women's game, and really helped to to grow the game and having more people behind it. At the same time, too, you've been seeing in the last few years more women playing in the men's minor league, pro league here and there. And so until we have a league that really makes sense and everybody's behind and supporting behind, you may continue to see some of those women play in the minor leagues with the men.
And you mentioned the university game as well, of course, which has been so vital for the development of these younger women coming through. With that in mind, what do you feel the odds are of seeing a return of women players to the QMJHL? Do you think that's something that is more just a matter of time, or is something that circumstances would just have to conspire for it to occur?
I think it just depends where you're from and where you are. You have some, girls at a young age, they play in an area where women's hockey is not well developed, so they have no other choice than playing with the guys to continue to play at a highest level. So I think it all depends where you're from, especially like in a Quebec area. Like, they have some places that women's hockey is well developed and you can start playing at a young age with the women's or with the girls and go through this whole process. But some other place, like the only option is to play with the guys. And I believe they have like one girls right now playing in the midget AAA that's doing very well. So you never know. She may end up playing in a major junior for 4 years.
Manon, we've actually just seen that the Miami Marlins in Major League Baseball have hired a woman as their general manager. She is, of course, the first female to take on that role in major pro sports. What do you think the direction is going in terms of maybe seeing more women in high-ranking pro jobs such as that?
I think you're seeing more and more. I heard of like women coaches in football and women referee in football in the NFL. You also have in hockey here, Cami Granado, that's now a scout for Seattle. Haley Wickenizer that works with the player development in Toronto. You're going to see more and more of those women because they obviously their knowledge of the game and they can bring something different to than only like the perspective that a man can bring. And I think that's important for different teams to see different perspective. And it's great to see every time you have a woman that's breaking barriers. It just helps everybody else to know that if I'm passionate about something and I really like it and I work hard, I can do anything I put my mind to. And that's what, when those women break barriers like this, help other people to follow their dreams.
And a question that has to be asked, obviously you're so well known in the hockey community. If the opportunity like that was to ever maybe reach the doorstep of Manon Rheaume, is it something that would interest you?
It depends when it gets to that point. Right now, I'm focusing on working in Michigan here with the youth hockey program and, being a role model for those young girls. And I'm having a lot of fun with that. Also working at RDS now, which has been great the last few weeks. So I have my plate full for now, and we'll see. We never know what's going to happen in the future.
Manon, thank you very much for taking the time here. It's an honor, and it's also great to see you still involved at all levels of the game all these years later. So thanks once again.
Thanks for having me.